Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Natania Della Panjaitan from ACE. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this parallel session titled Industrial Decarbonization Net Zero Roadmap for the Steel Industry in ASEAN. Today's discussion will explore one of the most pivotal pillars of ASEAN's industrial transformation, how we can chart a practical and inclusive pathway for the region's steel sector to achieve net zero emissions while remaining competitive in the global economy. To begin, we will have a scene-setting presentation titled Shaping ASEAN's Low Carbon Future, the Case for Decarbonizing Steel. This presentation will provide a regional overview of the challenges and opportunities in transitioning the steel industry towards low carbon production and how innovation and investment can drive this change. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Resky Valeriz, presenting the ASEAN Center for Energy, to deliver the presentations.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Adela, for your kind introductions. And yeah, good afternoon, everyone, esteemed speakers and also participants. My name is Dan Valeriz, and I'll be delivering an overview of decarbonizations of the steel industry in Southeast Asia to provide some key figures and what will be the pathway towards decarbonized steel in the futures. And so maybe perhaps could you open the presentations? Okay, next. Okay, this is the outline of my presentations. So first, we'll discuss about the ASEAN demand in energy in industry sector as a whole, and after that we dive deeper into the ASEAN steel production landscape. Who will be the main producers? What will be the technological landscape in the futures? And we also discuss our recently published study, Net Zero Roadmap in Indonesia in Vietnam. And at the end of the sessions, we will provide some policy recommendations and also conclusions. Next. So let's begin with the landscape of the ASEAN energy demand industry sectors. So according to our recently published publications of ASEAN Energy Outlook 2024, it is forecasted that in 2050, the energy demand for industry will be tripled compared to the 2022 figures. And coal still the dominance of the energy carrier. So if we zoom in the bottom graph, we can see that the iron and steel is there, along with the non-metallic minerals like the cement industry as the top energy consumers in this region. So that highlights the importance of decarbonizing the iron and steel sectors in these regions. And if we are to decarbonize these sectors, of course, there is substantial efforts that we need to collectively do as a regions to reduce the coal consumptions. And of course, this will lead to the greater use of electricity, hydrogens, and other renewable energy. Next one. So where does the steel industry in ASEAN stands? So according to Southeast Asia's Steel Institute in 2024, it is estimated that the production's capacity of the steel is amounting to 78 million tons per year. And it is forecasted that these figures will rise to 184 by 2030. But unfortunately, these additions in capacity will be dominated with the blast furnace and basic oxygen furnace technologies, which is high energy intensive. And there are some key drivers of these additions, of course, like cost competitiveness, abundance of high supply. But at the same time, we are also facing challenges as the regions. The most obvious one, of course, the capacity utilizations. So the number says that the average utilizations of the steel plant in these regions is around 60%, below a healthy level of 80%. And we are also still depending on the import from other regions to fill the gap of the unsatisfied specific products. For example, there is a product mix match where many of our productions is long products which is used for the constructions, where there is also an increasing demand in flat products which is used for manufacturing and automotive sectors. Next one. And this is some rough figures. On the right side, on the left side, you can see that, of course, Vietnam and Indonesia are the two leading countries that produce steel. But there's also an interesting figures on the right side where you can see there is a China steel exports worldwide, where you can see on the top chart that Southeast Asia is the main target for the export from China. And this also inflict another problems for us as a regions to compete against the cheap price from China due to the economy of scales. And we recently published a net zero roadmap for steel industry in Indonesia and Vietnam, where in our analysis we follow the principle of the 5 decarbonization pillars. So the first one will be, of course, the material efficiency and demand management, where we try to assess how circularity, material efficiency, and optimized design in constructions can contribute to the reductions of the steel demand as a whole. And second one, the energy efficiency and electrifications and of heating. So actually, there are many proven technologies which have been there for decades, which we can use. We can try to promote. We can use to push to be adopted in the current existing steel plants. And the third one is fuel switching and cleaner electricity with the increased use of natural gas instead of coal and renewable energy. And the fourth pillar is the main lever of decarbonization according to our study, where the transitions of low carbon steel making is the key to decarbonize these sectors, where according to our study, the scrap-based electric arc furnace will be the main technologies that we like to achieve in the next 20, 30 years in these regions, while at the moment is still dominated by blast furnace and basic oxygen furnace. And last one, carbon capture storage is our last resort to reduce the emissions from the remaining unabated CO2. And in our study, you can see on the top charts is the trend of the steel productions in Vietnam and Indonesia. So the interesting part here is if you look at the left graph in Vietnam in the blue line, so there's a crude steel production. So in the space of 10 years in Vietnam, there's an increase of crude steel productions 4 times. So this signals the increase of demands in steel productions. And same goes with Indonesia. But unfortunately, if you look at the technology shares, around 65 until 70% still use energy-intensive technologies, blast furnace and basic oxygen furnace. And this results of our study, how to decarbonize the steel sectors in Vietnam, as I mentioned previously, that the technology shift to steel making technology will be the main lever of decarbonizations, followed by energy efficiency and also electrifications. But I would like to emphasize that there is no standalone solutions. All of this has to happen at the same time in order to reach the net zero in 2060. And I won't go into the details for each pillars due to time limit. So I would like to highlight our key pillars to decarbonize steel sectors. So you can see on the graph on the screen that using the blast furnace and basic oxygen furnace will generate nearly 2 tons of CO2 per ton crude steel productions. But if you compare to other technologies and other options like the natural gas, DRI, with electric arc furnace, we can get reductions until 50%. But and also if we simulate with the green hydrogens, it will go even lower, below 1.2. And yeah, this another highlights what will be the technology would like in 2050 if we are to decarbonize the steel sectors in these regions. We can see on the very right sides the net zero scenarios. The technology shares for decarbonizing steel sectors in 2060, it will be dominated by the scrap-based EAF or electric arc furnace. So maybe the scrap will not be available in the next 5 to 10 years, but in the next 20 and 30 years, there will be plenty of scrap that we can use to be recycled to make steel from the electric arc furnace. And we did a bunch of analysis as well about the levelized cost of steel. So we compared two technologies, the blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace, compared to scrap EAF, where the BF buff cost component is mainly coming from the iron ore and also the fossil fuel, while the scrap base, almost 70% cost is attributed to the scrap material itself. So this highlights the importance of us also to how we can try to promote circularity and also to make the market, a scrap market in these regions more formal with certifications, harmonized standard, and regulations, of course, to allow trade of scrap within these regions. So this will be main important thing that we have to prepare in order to achieve the scrap-based EAF in the future. And this is also another interesting analysis here. We did analysis of the hydrogen DRI with differing level of prices and also carbon prices compared to the BF buff technologies. So it turns out that it requires the hydrogen's cost to be as low as $1 per kilogram H2, with additional carbon prices as much as $50 per ton, in order for this technology to get to the cost parity with the BF buff. So the price of hydrogens will be critical as well for us to achieve the net zero in the future. And if that figures is translated into the users, this is also another interesting story. Let's say for the automotive for cars, one car requires around 900 kilograms of steel. If that translates into the green premium, it will cost around 285 per car. And if you compare to total cost car is 20,000, it's not nothing, but it's also not that big actually. And so what will be the action plan for each country? Of course, as I mentioned, all of these solutions should not be a standalone. It has to happen all together. From material efficiency, we need to use a guideline for the construction, steel efficiency into green public procurement. For low carbon steel, we have to redirect investment to EAF. Fuel switchings, of course, if we can push corporate renewable energy will be great, and energy efficiency and electrifications through mandate of audits. And there's also some potential call of collaborative actions within these regions. The first one, of course, we have to agree the definitions of green steel, what will be the scope, what will be the boundaries of the green steel that aligns with international standards, of course. And data reliability and availability will also be critical in order to ensure disclosure and reliability of the data. And the other thing that I have highlighted previously is the scrap market collections standard. There is another standard outside there like ISRI and also EU 27 that we can try to adopt. And threat remedies, we need to strengthen our market to protect our market in these regions. Malaysia has just lifted the anti-dumping ban for steel products from Vietnam, and that's a great way to strengthen our collaborations. And transition finance also will be another issues that we need to tackle, and powering with RE in the previous station with ASEAN Power Grid and cross-border RRC, we also contribute highly to decarbonize the steel in the future. So I guess I'll stop there to save some time. Thank you so much and look forward to the discussion with panelists.
Giving applause to Mr. Dan Valeriz. Thank you very much, Mr. Dan Valeriz, for insightful presentations. We will now proceed to our panel discussion, where distinguished experts will share their perspective on how ASEAN can transform its steel industry towards a net zero future. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Mr. Rio John Peter Silitonga, Senior Research Analyst for Energy Efficiency and Conservation at the ASEAN Center for Energy. Mr. Rio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adele, for the introductions. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, again, I'd like to welcome everyone to our parallel sessions on industrial decarbonization, the net zero roadmap for steel industry. I'm Rio from the ASEAN Center for Energy. I will be happy to moderate these panel sessions as we can discuss how actually ASEAN is doing towards decarbonization effort in steel industry. I think as mentioned, during the presentation of Mr. Dan from the ASEAN Center for Energy, steel industry is still the cornerstone of the ASEAN economic growth. And also showing the global trends markets that shift towards carbon constrained trends. This is actually put ASEAN in the critical juncture where the decision made by ASEAN today will be determining whether the ASEAN steel industry will be competitive and also sustainable in the future. So we will discuss what actually the challenge of ASEAN in order to align with the global trends market, including opportunities for us to collaborate toward these decarbonization efforts. So this session will be featured with our distinguished speakers. There are 4 main speakers that we're going to invite for this session. Some of them will be joining with us online, and then we have actually 2 speakers that will be able to join with us offline here. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Kajol. She is joining with us online. May I check the connection with Ms. Kajol? Can you hear us?
You.
Yeah. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Perfect. So she is the project manager for the climate neutral industry, Southeast Asia at Agora Industry, bringing a global and region. I think we expect she able to provide us a global perspective and also national perspective, regional perspective on industrial decarbonizations and technology readiness. And with us here, I think I'd like to invite also to the podium Mr. Mitch Gelber, CEO of the Malaysia Green Building Council. Please come to podium. Please give him, joining with me to welcome him. I think we wish you to bring us insight on how actually building and construction sector can drive market demand on green and sustainable steel in the region. And then also with us here, Mr. Zulkifli Jahari. Please also joining me to welcome him on stage. He is the president of Malaysian Association of Energy Service Company, MISCO. So we expect Mr. Architect Zulkifli Jahari to share with us the experience and also in energy management, ESCO business model, and also financing frameworks for industrial decarbonization industry in particular. And also joining with us from the steel producer online, Mr. Chad Rabbob Pontam. He's the ESG division manager at the Siam Yamato Steel Company Limited of Thailand. So let me check the connection with Mr. Chatabop. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Let us open this discussions. I think, as I mentioned, we will particularly explore how ASEAN can lead a just transition and also competitive steel sectors through technology readiness, coordinated action, and also market incentive and financial mechanism. Now, to begin with our dialogues, I think from the scene setting that presented by my colleague, Mr. Dan, in terms of the steel landscape and also the roadmap. So maybe I'd like to open the question to the all panelists that you want to respond as well. What should ASEAN prioritize to do to ensure that steel industry remains globally competitive while we are achieving our net zero ambitions? Perhaps from the speaker online, also from our speakers here that joining us in person also can provide your response, please.
Maybe I can start, yeah. Okay, I must first declare that I'm an architect and I do not really have the intricate information about the steel industry. So I'll be talking things in general, yeah. So anyway, when the question is asked, how do we remain globally competitive, ASEAN level, yeah. So when you talk about ASEAN level, I think what we want to know or we want to achieve is that the steel products from ASEAN is globally accepted. Yeah, so it is something that we demand global market. So whatever that was presented just now, I did not see the ASEAN certification level where we can say that our products are certified at a global level. And I think that is the first thing that probably we'll have to actually consider in order to gain the attention of the international market to get the green certificates of our steel industry. Maybe there is existing ones. But I know that if you want to have that, you also have to have this monitoring, reporting, and verification system in place. And so if we have this certification with monitoring, verification, reporting and verification in place, then I think our products can be accepted. That's the first thing. Number two, in order to remain competitive, the most obvious thing, of course, the reason why I'm invited here also is because we need to embark in all those technologies that was being discussed just now, whether it's heat recovery or whether it's hydrogen ready or whether it's process improvement and so on, in order to drive down production costs as well as to drive down operational fuel costs. Yeah. And finally, I think what we need to do, these things needs financing, and therefore you need to somehow link financing with these green technologies that we want to introduce. So that is my take of how, in general, we can remain competitive and capture the global market at ASEAN level. Of course, we have to talk about the economics of scale where we want to look into production at ASEAN level. Thank you.
Thank you, Architect, emphasizing how we should embark the technologies that has been presented and also the rules of certifications and also monitoring and verification is very critical in order to keep our steel industry competitive. Any other response from our speakers? Yeah, please. Yeah. Mr. Yeah. Yeah, please. Mr. Chap. Yeah. If you have
I just want to add the competitiveness right now for ASEAN steel industry is being bombarded with Chinese imports, which of course majority is from blast furnaces. So there needs to be some sort of mechanism, such as in the EU they have the CBAM, right? If I can propose for an ASEAN cross-border adjustment mechanism, as well as emissions trading scheme, similarly to the EU, but for the ASEAN perspective, these sort of things would encourage steel industries in ASEAN to go green. So there needs to be some regional mechanism as well as the mechanism from the national members to dictate whether we want to have a green future for steel industries in ASEAN. Just now, Dan paints a picture of very scary that there'll be some more blast furnaces appearing in ASEAN. But if the member countries decide that there should not be blast furnaces, it should be DRI or it should be EAF for the future of steel, then this should be considered as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chatabop, for your perspective on behalf of the steel producers in ASEAN regions, emphasizing the importance of the regional mechanism. Yeah, I think this is something that we have been discussing also, to have such kind of regional mechanisms and platform in order to discuss how actually the ASEAN steel industry will be able to be competitive. Looking the case of the China, for instance, that has been said by Chatabop as well. So thank you. I think I'd like to move to the key topic that we wish to discuss as well in this platform in terms of the technology readiness and reinvestment. So again, Mr. Chatabop, as you are representing the industry perspective, we wish you to bring with us also some on-ground experiences in your company level sustainability and also transition investment. Perhaps we can share with us here, with the audience as well, actually how the Siam Yamamoto Steel, green steel, advancing the green steel product, and perhaps you can emphasize what are the key challenges and opportunities in technology and also financing, and what do you think the policymakers should be supporting you in these efforts? Please, Mr. Chatabop. Thank you.
Okay, so from Siam Yamamoto Steel, we are the steel mills in Thailand. So our main source of energy is electricity, because we operate only electric arc furnaces. So the energy that contributes to our Scope 2 emissions is our main concern. So the first priority, the steps that we took, was to do energy efficiency improvement projects. And these we arrange as bottom-up projects for our staff. And this, including the installation of solar panels on rooftops, lead to about 6% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions. Apart from that, we also take a look at our Scope 1 emissions, which comes from natural gas and our anthracite coke. In terms of natural gas, we were able to reduce our natural gas consumption with the use of oxygen-enriched fuels, as well as for anthracite coke, we are able to switch to carbon black, which comes from recycled tires. And we are also looking further into bio-based carbon, such as biomass and biochar, to further reduce our anthracite coke consumption. So in the past 5 years altogether, we are able to reduce about 70% of our greenhouse gas emissions. And our target is to reduce further to about 30%. But this needs collaboration with the government, because as I mentioned, our main emission comes from electricity. So if the grid electricity, the emissions factors that contribute to our Scope 2 emissions is not reduced, then we cannot do anything about it, because all our solar installation is already covers about 90% of our rooftops. And if we are going to do the solar farms elsewhere, the regulations for the transmission is not yet allowed for third-party access. So these are the obstacles that we still have with regards to reducing our emissions. So the government tries to introduce what is called the utility green tariff on the green electricity. Basically, it says that if you want green electricity, you have to pay a premium. So not many industry users are willing to pay this premium, because the electricity that the power consumers are using are mostly off-peak electricity, which is about 30 to 40% lower price than the utility green tariff electricity. So this program is not well accepted by the industrial users. So yeah, so there's a lot of obstacles that we still face with our decarbonization program, and we are hopefully that government will initiate some actions to make these obstacles less or reduced. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chatapop, for sharing with us very focused information in terms of your efforts towards a green steel initiative. I think we noted in terms of how you actually utilize renewable energy and then fuel switching towards more environmental friendly sources, including you mentioned about the initiative of the government that you think should be encouraged in order to support you on the green steel effort that you're doing. And also, yeah, thank you. I'd like to maybe as a follow-up questions to the efforts that has been shared with us from the Mr. Chatrapop. Perhaps I'd like to ask our speakers, Ms. Kajol, who is joining with us online. I think we noted that from the presentation from Mr. Dan also proposing such technology that ASEAN steel industry can embark, and also from the effort on the steel industry in ASEAN region to look into the technology that might be as a way of supporting them towards more green steel industry. So how do you think from your perspective, ASEAN can balance short-term energy efficient and long-term technologies such as hydrogens and CCUS as technology options towards a green steel industry? And I mean, looking into the situations of the diverse situation of ASEAN member state, how do you think ASEAN member state pace this strategy into their different levels of readiness? Ms. Kajol, please.
Thank you, Mr. Reo. I think that's a very good question when we are looking at choosing the smart, practical path between the short-term wins and the big risk bets. This is exactly the strategic trade-off that policymakers must manage. I would like to make 3 practical points here. First, this is also based upon the research that we have done, which quite aligns with the presentation that Dan made. I think it was a fantastic presentation, which gives a very clear picture around that. The first, we need to start with the fundamentals. I guess the energy efficiency, resource efficiency, circularity are the base blocks, and they are the main and the continuing happening entities or the operations that we have to always have in industries to keep competitiveness and to be in reducing our emissions. So these are like a no regret measures that lower the cost and also reduces the energy demand and improve the competitiveness. They also optimize the need for the new renewables. So we know like how much renewables are actually required, how much we need to build up, because this requirement for the green hydrogen would require to have us a huge amount of the renewable basis if we want to keep the green hydrogen production in-house. Otherwise, we have to depend a lot on the getting the hydrogen from outside. So if we have to do that, we have to create that whole ecosystem. So that becomes us a very important that how do we accelerate the renewable energy. So I hear from the previous session also, just before our session started, there was a lot of conversation going on the renewables. So how do we accelerate the renewables as well? I guess that's another and a very important point. And my previous speaker also raised like how do we reduces those blockages which are there for the renewables adoption by the private sector, by these industries. So having the corporate PPAs or, those becomes like a building blocks for all of that. So those would definitely remains there, and we need good policies around it. And the second most important is to stop the lock-in into the bad bets. We have been investing quite a lot in the last couple of decades in the coal-based blast furnaces. So how do we take that strong and a bolder decision to stop all these buildup of a new coal-based blast furnaces investment? In fact, these new blast furnaces capacity risk both the stranded assets and also deepen our overcapacity issue. So we have to be like taking a very strong, bold decision over there. It's financially and environmentally counter productive if we don't take that. Rather, I would say what you have also been emphasizing, a regional restraint here is more powerful lever. So how coordinated we can go as a coordinated effort on halting these investments, which can go again in the coal-based blast furnaces. The second and the third would be then we must use this fleet timing. Most of the fleets that we have is a pretty young fleet. And in the next decade, they would be coming for relining or major maintenance. So how do we use that critical window of the next decade to increase our investment into the H2 DRI? And in the next 10 years, as also from the presentation, we see that there is a time when we would have the start of the availability of the scrap, the availability of the hydrogen price will be more, we can assume that it's going to be more competitive. So rather than simply refurbishing the fossil heavy plants, align the policies, incentive, and finances that are more alternative or more attractive towards the hydrogen ecosystem creation, gradually increasing our electric arc furnaces, doing some pilots on the H2 DRI to create more of the trust within the industries, and also to have like a more transparency. We need to collaborate at each level. So simultaneously preparing the environment for hydrogen and other transformative technologies, having these standards and the MRV, the pilot hub, the offtake arrangements, and the blended finance. I think that would be the definite levers if we want the industry to be leaner and cleaner today and structurally also preparing them for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll stop here.
Thank you, Ms. Kajol. Your perspective, I think you noted on how actually we should avoid the blocking diagram for blocking block for the renewable energy, and also to restrict more stringent on the fossil-based sources of the furnace, including you mentioned how actually the key pilot project for DRI is also key in order to move towards more green technology for steel industry. Thank you. I'll back to you later again. Let's us moving to the market demand perspective. I think we have here our speaker from Malaysia Green Building Council that, as I mentioned, we expect can bring perspective on how to create demand, because it's I think we noted that steel demand in ASEAN is rising due to the infrastructure and urban development. Yet, the global steel and construction sector face high risk from overcapacity and also cost pressures, as mentioned from our scene setting presentations. So, as the representative from Malaysia Green Building Council, Mr. Mitch Gelber, can you provide us your perspective how actually Malaysia building and construction sectors through certificate system, green procurement, I think mentioned by architect Jule as well, very key towards a more competitive steel industry, and also possible regional harmonization of standard help to drive stronger demand for low carbon and sustainable steel across the building and construction sectors in ASEAN, in Malaysia in particular. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think from a demand side, the challenges and solutions are pretty straightforward, refreshingly. It's a lot of the issue just has to do with transparency. We have already in the industry mechanisms for environmental product declarations, which cut across industries. EPDs, the declaration of the environmental impact of materials that go into construction and building, are transparent, they're cross-border, and they create a leveling effect, which also potentially addresses issues of competitiveness for ASEAN, faces threats from other regions, steel imports or steel supply from other regions, increasing the transparency of our domestic production creates a really powerful tool for accelerating the influence of demand side. Having steel products that go into automotive industry, building industry, be transparent and declared allows market forces to take effect, where we can evaluate like to like on what's the environmental impact of one material versus another. And I think this also then compounds just basic economic transformation. You know, what we're having here from on a higher level is not so much an environmental transformation or reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, but a technological transformation, fundamental change of how our energy sector is functioning. Fossil fuels are expensive relative to renewables. And so the longer that industries use legacy energy products and processes, the less competitive our steel industry is going to be globally. The faster we can transition to electrification, predicated on cheap, plentiful renewable energy, the more competitive our national and regional industries will be globally. So that's already the case in 2025. We're hearing about some of the blockers. The good thing about a blocker is that it implies momentum is moving clearly in one direction. It's much easier to remove a blocker than it is to push a boulder up a hill. And when it comes to decarbonization of steel and our regional industrial sectors, the momentum is clearly rolling in one direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell, and thank you emphasizing the importance of transparency. I think, yeah, data also something that we see is very challenging in all sectors. Yeah.
Sorry, one last thing I forgot to mention is that we don't really need to introduce new certifications, new mechanisms. We already have the mechanisms, and the mechanisms are declaration. We have international standards for measuring the environmental impact, the energy use, the emissions for products, and we regionally adhere to those standards. We don't need to all create 10 different standards for steel in 10 different countries. You know, those EPDs cross borders. And so if the end products are all validated with a public declaration of what the impact of this material is, it helps facilitate that regional collaboration and coordination.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the perspective. So a follow-up question, maybe, I mean, if you're aware of the Malaysian steel industrial roadmap is IR 2035. So how do you think, from your perspective, this is actually will be able to drive environmental and also stringent low carbon materials for steel? Yeah.
So the roadmap's relatively new. It's just I think last month. So I can't speak necessarily to the details or particular items, but in general, I think the major impact is that these aren't challenges that can be achieved by one sector working in isolation. In Malaysia, the bulk of our steel industry is already electric arc furnace. The emissions are tied directly to the electrification and the carbon factor of our national grid. So upgrading our grid, transitioning to renewables as quickly as possible is not just environmental imperative, it's economic imperative. What I tell our members and what we see from our manufacturing sector, the sun doesn't charge us a bill for electricity. This is, for the first time in human history, access to cheap, limitless power from the sun, in other parts of the world from the wind. And the faster we can transition, it's a decoupling of our industrial processes from energy as a commodity to energy as a limitless, cheap source. So we in Malaysia, in ASEAN, we in different countries, we have health, Hospitals is a human right. We have housing. We have education as a human right. For the first time, we're seeing glimmers of cheap, plentiful energy that is a human right. Because by decoupling from fossil fuels, the way that we use energy, the way that we think of energy is changing. So I think as the faster we can use national policies, incorporate energy transition into our national futures and our regional collective futures, the sooner we can tap into that changing economic reality.
Thank you. Interesting point of view of how we going to should decoupling the energy use in order to change also the way of thinking of using the energy. I think that's thank you for the perspective. So allow me to move to our key topics discussion on the regional policy alignment and how actually we're going to turn the challenges into opportunities by developing a supportive policy alignment. I'd like to get back to Mr. Chatrabob Pontam from Siam Yamamoto Steel. I think as ASEAN steel producers facing growing trade pressures and upcoming carbon border adjustment mechanism, I think this is related to the externality CBAM, such as how actually do you think the region, maybe in the context of your company, turn this challenge into opportunities? Perhaps you can share with us your perspective. Thank you.
Yep. Let's talk about CBAM because we are also exporting to countries in Europe. Currently, they're in the transition stage, and so we are required only for a report, self-certified reports. But come January, this will be a full CBAM, in which the rules are not yet clear on such as how they are going to have the third-party verification done. Currently, they haven't yet announced any companies who will be the third-party verifier in Thailand or even in ASEAN, I think. Not a single company is currently being accepted by EU as a third-party verifier. The rules are about the how often do you have to audit is not yet clear. We've been asking to the government sector in Thailand, especially to the Department of Foreign Trade, on whether the rules are being negotiated between Thailand and EU or not. So this is not yet finalized. So there are a lot of things that we are not ready for in terms of CBAM starting January the 1st. Luckily, there has been an announcement that the carbon border mechanism will be a little bit postponed to be February of 2027, but it will be backtracked back to January the 1st of 2026. So we're still waiting for clarification on the rules. So as I think about how ASEAN could collaborate, I think ASEAN as a whole could have a more bargaining power with EU on the clarification of the rules and regulations in the CBAM mechanism.
Yeah, thank you. I do agree. I think how actually ASEAN regional collaboration is also critical in that we can actually turn the challenges related to CBAMs into opportunities. But as a follow-up question, I think as mentioned by architect Zulkifli as well, certifications also is a key in order to drive our steel sectors towards more green steel products. So how do you think ASEAN should prioritize maybe your perspective on the ideas of to harmonize green steel product in ASEAN, including the standard and certification that will be able to support your trade mechanism for low carbon
I
product?
sort of agree with Mitch comments in the beginning that we do not need a new standard. The EPD is currently being accepted globally as a way to calculate the global warming potential. And the global warming potential is being accepted by green building councils around the world, such as the LEED version 5, who use the global warming potential as the baseline to calculate the embodied carbons of buildings. So I'm not sure that we need a new method to calculate, but we do need to agree on what is the definition of a green steel. So far, the World Steel Association has not yet come up with a clear definition of what is green steel, because there are discrepancies between blast furnace producers and the electric arc producers. You know, the blast furnace says, oh, a 1.8 ton CO2 is already considered green, while the electric arc says, oh, I'm producing at about 500 kilos or 600 kilos of CO2, and this is normal for us. So there hasn't been yet a consensus of what is constitute green steel. In Singapore, the Green Building Council has come up with the certification method called the Singapore Green Building Product Certification, in which steel, for steel, in order to get the 4-star or 4 ticks, you have to have the embedded emissions of not more than 900 kilograms. So we also follow that one. So for ASEAN, I think we need to agree on what is the definition of green steel on the embodied carbon. What is the limit that we should take? Of course, there will be discrepancies between blast furnaces and electric arc furnaces. That will pose some difficulties in coming up with a clear definition.
Yeah, thank you. I do agree with you. I think ASEAN should be looking at a common definition of what actually green steel associated with. I think, yeah, this is something that something that we're going to prioritize to be discussed in order to drive the green steel sectors in the region. But just a follow-up question from our colleagues from Thailand steel producer, maybe because we have here from Malaysian speakers. So I think mentioned by our speakers that EPD is critical tools, maybe, but there is a challenge in terms of the database. So what do you think, maybe Mr. Mitch and also Architect Joel, do you think ASEAN should consider to harmonize the database for the green product, whether this is actually being prioritized and emphasized under the sustainable steel industry roadmap 2035 of Malaysia? Yeah, maybe Mitchell, later you can also respond to the EPD database as well. Yeah, please.
Well, I think why we establish ASEAN is to try and see how much common grounds we can have in order to promote our economic development, yeah, and to probably reduce the disparity gap between our fellow countries within ASEAN. So if we can actually come up with a consensus on whatever that needs to be agreed upon, or whether it's green or whether it is needing a certification or not, the whole idea is to get the products accepted, and we are looking into getting into the global market. So if there is no requirement, then fine, then we just drive our price down and make sure that our products are exported as much as possible. But otherwise, if there is a requirement, and I do believe we will head towards that direction. And when you talk about this cross-border adjustment mechanism and so on, that is required by the financing companies, it's required by compliance and things like that. Probably it will come, if not now. But it's good for us to prepare for the future, because I think it's critical for ASEAN to come together to to produce and make a big voice for ourselves in order to negotiate as one center. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe Mitch.
I think just to add on, I think the harmonization, the value of ASEAN is as a trading bloc, but it's also as knowledge exchange. We have a tremendous amount of diversity in the size of our economies, our regional geographic proclivities. You know, from our experience in building construction sector, one of the greatest values of these regional networks is the cross-border, not just cross-border disclosure, but cross-border knowledge exchange. We learn from each other's challenges, we learn from each other's solutions, and in building construction sector, we've seen this yield benefits again and again. And solutions that are applicable in Singapore are not necessarily applicable in Malaysia and vice versa, but we learn from each other. We learn from that knowledge exchange may not always be one-to-one, but it's always a source of inspiration and looking to each other to work together to find common solutions is extremely powerful. So I don't know if we need cross-border mechanism in particular in ASEAN, but working together, we all have the challenge of working with to export our products to other parts of the world, learning from each other, working with each other to reduce some of those barriers collectively is to the benefit of all of us.
Thank you. So it's not only about cross-border disclosure, but also regional exchange of knowledge and information. So critical. So I think I'd like to move to our key topic discussion on the finance mechanism as one of the aspects also driver and enabler also for steel sector to embark with the green technologies that we have presented. So Architect Gelber, as you are the president of the MISCO of Malaysia, so how do you think ESCO business model play critical roles in order to support steel sectors towards decarbonization efforts?
Well, the definition of an ESCO is an entity that can provide a turnkey solution to facility or industries or commercial sector, whereby he can provide, introduce technology and capital in order to reduce operational costs and energy costs, and at the same time, of course, address the sustainable goals of the company involved. So generally, where financing model is concerned, the ESCOs practice what you call energy performance contracting model, whereby it's either zero upfront costs or shared saving. The first one is called shared saving, the others is guaranteed savings. So in 2000 to 2007, there was a project called the Malaysian Industrial Energy Efficiency Improvement Project, which was done by UNDP and GEF. And at that time, our tariff was merely 1/3 of what it is today. Yeah. And we tackled the steel industry, many steel industries, cement, ceramic, pulp and paper, wood, and so on. And even during those days, when we did the industrial audits, we found that many measures can be done in the absence of today's technology, such that the returns of investments of the measures done can achieve less than 3 years, a simple payback period. And that includes the steel industry. And I still have 48 audits in my office to prove that. So therefore, what we need to know is, we need to really audit ourselves. And in Malaysia, we have just introduced a new act called the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, whereby every entity that's affected by this act, which uses 21,600 gigajoules per year, will have to do mandatory audits, will have to engage registered energy managers, will have to do annual reporting, and also have an energy management system in place. And this will of course help in Malaysia's energy transition roadmap, which targets of course net zero by 2050 as well. So generally, the ESCO's concept is to be a mediator with the banks. The ESCO's also arranges for the financing, and of course, if the client prefers to take the loan on their balance sheet, then they are welcome to do so. And the ESCO will just provide the guaranteed savings, meaning to say, if there's a shortfall in saving, the exposure to the difference would be the liability of the ESCO. The other concept is that if there is a saving, say 40% or 30%, then the model says that over a period of time, we can share the saving, after which the contract expires, the full saving will be at the benefit of the client that the ESCO has served.
Yeah, thank you. So it is actually indeed ESCO business model also still has some economic benefits in steel sectors. Thank you. So I think as a closing question, I think because we have a limited time, apologize for that. I don't want to prolong your lunch because it's within the lunch time. So just a very closing round question to all speakers here. I think because we've been discussing about ASEAN context, looking to case of Thailand, also Malaysia. So if ASEAN were to develop our regional roadmap on green steel roadmap, I think I'd like to get your perspective very brief. What should we prioritize in terms of technology, financing, and standard, and how we can actually learn from the national steel industry roadmap. Maybe I can start from our speakers joining online with us, maybe from Ms. Kajol, and then followed by Mr. Kajol, from our steel producer. Please, Mr. Kajol.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Rio. I think from my point of view and my perspective, if ASEAN were to develop a regional green steel roadmap, I would put the standards and market enabling instrument, the demand side instrument, as the top priority for the next 5 years. We need a more aligned across every country and at the regional level, more aligned standards that could be the real gateway. As we hear, there are already standards. So how we can bring that all together to be more credible, harmonized, and what can then be defined as a green steel from the region's point of view, and not just looking at like how the global is defining, but aligning it more with the global should be the priority. We have to take some steps to doing that, and that would require to be looking at across the whole value chain and not just looking at like one perspective. And this would require how do we look at from the upstream, midstream, and downstream point of view, all the different mix of, it's not just one bullet would fit all. I think this is a mix of a combination of a different thing. So once we have the standards, we would need like definitions, and that gives a clear market signal. So having the green public procurement as the priority with those things in the place, that would also help in financing and creating a more recognized buyer's market and mobilizing the different kind of the instruments that would also go around it. I think that would be one definitely. And for that can be passed on as a technology deployment that follow up at a scale, and expanding onto the EAF capacity and piloting some of the low carbon technology projects would be the second for me. So I would put the demand side as the first here.
Thank you, Kajol. That pushing demand side as the priority essence that we have to look at. Maybe Mr. Chatapop, if you have any perspective on that question. Thank you.
I think we need some sort of coming together of parties, four groups of parties. The first one being the steel producers in ASEAN. The second is the policymakers. The third are the academic and research institutions, which we have a lot in ASEAN. And the fourth is the financial sector. And sitting down together and discuss what are the obstacles and barriers, put everything down on the table, and I think we could come up with solutions that would benefit the ASEAN as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for emphasizing the needs to strengthen the collaborations, especially for the market players and stakeholders that you have identified to be priorities for discussions. Yeah. I'd like to move to our speaker here, Ms. Mitchell. Maybe your last response.
I think if we look at the building construction sector as an example, you know, we've had a fairly clear definition of green buildings, both in our respective countries and globally, and this can have a double-edged sword because intentionally or otherwise, it implies that green solutions are something that are exceptional or something that are worthy or warrant special recognition. And that may have been had more value 10, 15, 20 years ago, but increasingly these are solutions which represent technological evolution and advancement, and they're solutions which can be straight away mainstreamed. We're well past the point of these being halo solutions or exceptional solutions. And so I think that we need to proceed with caution when we characterize something as green steel or not green steel. It's steel. And what is the impact of that steel? What are the business models? What are the economic engines behind that product? It's universal, it's mainstreamed, and we have the solutions already laid out in front of us to adopt them on a very wide scale. So I think let's just take a step back and reflect on not keeping these environmental solutions as something which is always 10 years, 20 years into the future, but they're actually actionable and economically viable now.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitchell. Maybe architecture, maybe on the financing aspect.
No,
Yeah.
I'd like to just add, well, ASEAN is made of more 10 countries, I
Yeah.
think, yeah. And we've been talking about those who are leading the steel industries, Vietnam, Thailand, maybe Malaysia, Indonesia. But we have other countries too, like Laos, Myanmar, and so on. And you're talking about alignment of policies and things like that. So I think there's some responsibility for ASEAN countries to assist capacity building of all these countries that need some assistance in order for us to level up the playing field and become a true global player over a period of time. Yeah, so I think that is something that I would like to look at because not everybody has the same source of fuel. Philippines may be totally dependent on imports. Malaysia has got gas. Indonesia has got oil, coal, and so on. So everything calculates to GHG differently. So in order for us to come up with some common grounds, there's lots and lots of things to do. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Architect Joel. So again, thank you all. Thank you to all our panelists today for sharing your valuable insights. And to our audience also, thank you so much for your attention. So today's discussion reinforced one key takeaway: ASEAN steel transition depends on partnership between governments, industry, and financial institutions to align with the technology, policy, and investment toward greener and more competitive future for our region. I'd like to thank you again to all of you. I think will be concluding our sessions. Thank you again, all the participants and the speakers. Yeah, I'll give it back to our moderator.
Giving applause to the speakers and the moderators. Thank you to all speakers, moderators, and participants for engaging in some insightful discussion. First, we would like to have a photo session with online speakers, the scene setting presenters, and all the offline speakers and the moderator. Thank you. Today's session has underlined the vital importance for innovation, policy support, and financing mechanisms. Oh, belum. Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Today's session has underlined the vital importance of innovation, policy support, and financing mechanisms to advance the region's journey towards a sustainable low-carbon steel industry, one that strengthens ASEAN competitiveness while supporting its net zero ambitions. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Energy, we extend our deepest appreciation to our panelists and all attendees for their valuable contributions. We wish you an enjoyable continuation of the ASEAN Energy Business Forum 2025, and thank you very much and have a pleasant day ahead.